Hey comic book fans, your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man is the latest outing from Marvel Animation. However, it is not technically set in the MCU, but it was supposed to be. It's complicated. We're gonna get into all of it, don't worry. But I just had to talk about this show because the first season of this show just wrapped up and I got some thoughts and opinions as a Spider-Man fan. But before we get into all of that, let's talk about the development of this show because that's kind of where this thing kind of gets a weird start and kind of made me a little nervous at first, but I really shouldn't have been. So your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man is just a quote-unquote run-of-the-mill animated Spider-Man TV show, but it was supposed to originally be the origin story for Tom Holland's Spider-Man in the MCU. But somewhere along the way in the development process, it shifted and it's just its own standalone thing now. It's somewhere in the shudder together multiverse. So it might be in the MCU, it might not be. This thing is not connected to the MCU, but it kinda is. Throughout the show, there's a lot of parallels to iconic moments in the MCU, but with a little bit of a twist. Without delving too much into it, the first episode ends with that iconic shot of Peter going back to his apartment where we first meet in Civil War, except instead of Tony Stark to greet him, it's Norman Osborn, and that just starts the show on a completely different path than we were expecting. So there's some big MCU moments, but with a different lens to them this time around. I just finished season 1, and y'all, I absolutely adore this show. This show has no right being as good as it is. So a little backstory. I am a huge Spider-Man fan. Before I was a Superman fan, before I was a Nightwing fan, before I was a Batman fan, there was Spider-Man. I grew up reading the Stan Lee and Steve Ditko Spider-Mans, the classic 60s stuff, basically anything Spider-Man I could get my hands on. I have loved Spider-Man for the longest time. But as I get older, it's just another superhero. I like Spider-Man plenty, and I'm not disparaging the MCU, but there hasn't been a Spider-Man project in a while that has truly made me feel that childlike wonder of reading those classic Spider-Man stories until this show. I don't want to be hyperbolic, but this show made me feel like I was reading those comics that I did as a kid all over again. This show, not in the like emotional, like sappy feels, but in the pure childhood nostalgia happiness feels, it hit something in me that I was not expecting from this show, whether it's the art style or the story directions that they go or using classic characters that I grew up with. This is the Spider-Man that I have wanted in the MCU for the longest time. And I love Tom Holland's Spider-Man, I really do. But this is the Spider-Man I've wanted the entire time, and he is perfect. So let's break it all down. Let's rejoice in something fantastic with Spider-Man because y'all, when this last episode finished, I'm sad that it's going to take us a while to get more episodes because I loved your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man that much. It's not perfect. We'll talk about some of my nitpicks here, but the positives, there's so many positives. My biggest positive, it's one that I haven't seen unilaterally across the board that everyone seems to love. The art style is pretty divisive, but for me, I love it. The show feels like a living, breathing comic. Not just how the characters are designed, we'll talk about that in a little bit here, but the way that they use the canvas feels like a living, breathing comic book. Sometimes it looks like a panel, sometimes it just uses the full frame, but the way that the camera moves, the quote-unquote camera, the way that they draw stuff, it feels like I'm watching a living, breathing comic, but a very specific comic. Like I said, it feels like the Lee and Ditko comics, but modernized. Like they made tweaks and changes to certain characters and their portrayals, which adapt more for a modern audience. And I really like that approach. It's visually stunning. The various Spider-Man suits, because spoiler alert, there's a couple, because in any Spider-Man project there has to be multiple Spider-Man suits because merchandising, where the real money from the movie comes from. I love the villain designs. There's a ton of villains. One villain I'm gonna shout out here in a little bit in particular, like chef's kiss. There's nothing wrong with his design. It's literally perfect. But I really dig the art style. The action scenes are really cool, very well animated. I really like it. It's a visually interesting and unique look to Spider-Man that's different than anything we've seen recently. But the show could look super pretty, but if it's not interesting and engaging to watch with interesting characters, then it all kind of falls apart. And the characters in Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man are so well done. Obviously, the big brunt of it is on Peter himself. And I love this Spider-Man so much. It made me realize, oh yeah, we haven't really had quippy Spider-Man in a long time. We had quippy Spider-Man in Civil War, and we had a little bit of quippy Spider-Man in Homecoming. This is quippy Spider-Man, and I love it. I love that he makes a joke out of everything. Obviously, the serious moments are the serious moments, but he jokes and makes fun of every villain. And none of his jokes really land consistently, but that's why I love Spider-Man. He swings at every joke possible, whether they connect or not. And I'm just now realizing why I love Spider-Man so much, and it's my humor style, people. But he's quippy, he's goofy, he's friendly. He's your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. He looks out for the little people. While we were watching it, my wife made a great observation. She's like, the emphasis of this show is neighborhood. The name is perfect. Your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. Because for the most part, this isn't some big galactic save the world story. It's back to basics. It's street level. It's how does Spider-Man interact with his neighborhood and those around him? Those are the best type of Spider-Man stories of you've got all the stuff to do and so very little time to do it. You've got all these responsibilities, and so little time to do them. You've got the crushing weight of the world on you at all times, and you're just a high school kid. I love that back to basics approach. It's something I wish we got more of. I keep saying that, like, I don't love the MCU Spider-Man. I do, but this is Spider-Man, people. And just, I love seeing his supporting cast. Spider-Man's great, but you've got people like Lonnie Lincoln, who is a fascinating character this time around. If you know Spider-Man comics, you know he's destined for other things. He's known by another alias, but what they do with his character is so fascinating. And the choices that they make with certain characters, like both Harry and Norman Osborn are in this show. I really like both of their portrayals a lot. We get Nico from The Runaways, a character that I was not overly familiar with, but I really like what she brought to the table. I just really like his supporting cast. It feels like a good community. Like, I'm not just interested in the Peter stuff, I'm interested in everyone's stories. It feels fleshed out to the point of when other characters start showing up, it's fun crossovers, but none of it feels out of the norm. There's several iconic Marvel characters that show up in this season, but none of them just feel like they're there for cameo bait. They don't feel like they're out of left field, completely undeserved. They all make sense within their respective episodes, and they play off each other so well, and they play off Spider-Man so well. It also made me think about, again, those old school Spider-Man comics where you'd see Spider-Man team up against Daredevil or fighting alongside Daredevil, or Thor, Captain America. They all exist in the same universe and they're allowed to cross over with each other, and the show has fun with that. But they never delve into what the MCU does of he's got to have a mentor, he's got to have a person that he's looking up to. No, he's fighting alongside these people. He's not an inferior character to the rest of them. He's not lesser than. He is equal to the other great heroes, even if he still kind of has his training wheels on. And speaking of fleshing out Spider-Man's greater universe, we get more Spider-Man villains in this than I thought we would. Not to tip my hand a little bit or tip the show's hand too much, but there was more characters in this than I was expecting. I'm not gonna shout them all out because I still want you guys to have some surprises, because I want you to watch this show. Please watch Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. It is amazing. I will say, just because he's been in some of the trailers and some of the marketing, Doc Ock is in it, and I love him so much. Doc Ock has always been one of my favorite villains, not just in Spider-Man lore, but in comics, period. And I love Doc Ock so much in Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. His design is genuinely perfect. Like, I have no notes, no changes, no nothing. That design is perfect. And he's a little theatrical and over the top, and I can see how that would annoy some people. But Doc Ock has always been a little bit extra in the comics, if we're being honest. So I kind of love that they played into that he's just kind of annoying at times, but annoying in a pompous way that I can absolutely see Doc Ock being. His design is perfect. There's others that I'm like, ooh, I like the changes that they made for your character or the direction that we're clearly going. They also do a lot of classic Spider-Man villains. Again, I'm a sucker for old school Spider-Man. So you bring in some old school villains and more or less just faithfully adapt their old school look. And I'm really, really going to be on board with it. Plus, they tease some really, really exciting things for season 2 and season 3 because they've already renewed this show for up to 3 seasons. I just want this thing to go on forever and to see what directions that they take and how they introduce new villains and what kind of designs they go with because they've already won me over both with Spider-Man and his villains. There's one shot, art style, design wise. I won't say too much, but the closing shot of episode 8. I audibly squealed because it made me so excited because it was classic Spider-Man to a T. This show plays with iconic Spider-Man lore and iconography. There's just certain shots that when you see them, you're like, that's a Spider-Man shot. That's ripped right out of a specific comic. And this show is filled with those type of things, little Easter eggs, references, both casual Spider-Man fans will get, but diehard Spider-Man fans will absolutely be rewarded. I'm watching it going, that web swinging, that is lifted verbatim from this other thing, or this fighting is lifted verbatim from this other thing, or you're lifting an actual specific comic panel. That's nothing to talk about the amazing intro to the show. Fantastic, love it. But there's just so many Easter eggs that as a Spider-Man fan, I'm going, yes, this just makes my little Spidey heart happy. That's why I'm so amped to talk to you guys about this, because as a Spider-Man fan, I've not felt this in a very long time. It's weird that I feel joy in my soul again, and I'm not completely jaded as a human. So thanks, Marvel Entertainment. However, it's not all perfect. I like Spider-Man, but I don't always love the voice actor with it. It's fine. And I'm not trying to nitpick it too much. It's just that we've had so many great Spider-Man voice acting recently, like Yuri Lowenthal in the PS4 and PS5 games. Fantastic. Josh Keaton has done a fantastic job. Hudson Thames he's fine. I get that he's clearly going for the Tom Holland voice here, but it's just okay. The performance of Spider-Man, like the writing that he's given, is phenomenal and is Peter and Spider-Man to a T. Just the voice acting, not as good as other Spider-Mans. And there's a shift in one of the characters that kind of feels a little rushed compared to everything else. Like, you know they're going to be a villain at some point, but it kind of just flips quicker than I think it should have. It should have been a little bit more of a slow burn. You know exactly which character it's going to be when you're watching it. But besides that, I have no other complaints. I love the show so much. It sets up so much cool stuff for season 2, season 3, and beyond. I love how the show ended without delving too much into spoilers. I'm going, oh, okay. I like when you connect dots for me here, because I feel stupid that I didn't connect these sooner. It's just so well done. I love the show so much, and I want more seasons forever and always. This was a very pleasant surprise. I know some people were poo-pooing it before the show was leading up to it. I was actually always on board. I always thought this was a cool idea, always liked the art style, and I was just happy to go, yeah, this is a good Spider-Man thing. Please give me more of this. And I feel something in my Spidey heart again. Well, what do you guys think? Have you seen your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man? Do you have any interest in it whatsoever? You're not a big animation person? Are you a big animation fan and you are curious about this show? Whatever your thoughts about Spider-Man in general, let me know down in the comments below, as I hear from you guys. And if you like what you see and you want to see more, subscribe to the channel. And as always, stay sharp, comic book fans.